Hello, my name's Josie Brookes. I'm an illustrator from Newcastle. I do different techniques with my work where I do print-based work, ink-based work, but I also do quite a lot of collage, something that I find is a really nice creative process and really fun and easy for all ability levels. So if it's something that you've not done before, I think you'll pick it up really easily, and it's something that you should have plenty of material at home that you can have a look around and source. So what I wanted to do today was to do the still life. I decided to choose a little flower from my garden, a little hydrangea, and pop it in a vase. So you could do something similar and pick a nice flower, or you can pick anything else that you find in the home, an interesting object that might have a really lovely colour, really nice texture, some kind of pattern. So it's something that kind of takes your fancy, grabs your attention, and that you'd like to collage. And then we're going to use our range of different materials to create our collage and turn it into a nice still life collage. So let's get started. First, we want to take our still life and spend some time moving it into a position that we're happy to work with. So you'll need for your basic materials a piece of A4 paper. It can be white paper or coloured, it could be cartridge paper or photocopier paper, whatever you have in the house is fine. You'll need a pair of scissors. You'll also need a glue stick. And lastly, you'll need a pencil. Collage material can be newspapers, magazines, junk mail, or if you're anything like me, you might have a box of offcuts or little scraps of paper from other projects that you've got left over, so that can be really useful too. We're going to take our piece of paper and our pencil, and we're going to start drawing a rough sketch of the still life. The purpose of this is to get a sense of the scale, but it can be nice and loose drawing. It doesn't have to be too detailed because we're obviously going to be going over this with the collage. Once we're happy with our rough sketch, we're going to put that to one side for a moment, and then we're going to take our collection of collage material. What we're going to do next is we're going to have a little look through it and pick out some pieces that we think are interesting, looking at our still life, looking at the colours and the textures that we can see. So for example, this piece here with the texture of the background looks like something interesting to me. So the aim of this bit is to essentially edit through our collage and pick out some interesting pieces. We're not worrying about the shapes at this point. It's more about the colours and the textures that are taking your fancy as you're looking through all the collage material. So you can see we've got a nice collection of colours in the sort of palette that inspires our still life. We're going to bring back our sketch. So what I'd like to do at this point is create a little bit of a background base. So I spotted this nice colour on my newspaper, and if you find anything that is got a nice biggish block of colour, it would be good for you to do the same. The really nice thing about collage is that we can just piece things together. It doesn't matter if it's kind of the same bits that are taken apart and then put together again, because that kind of just adds to the effect. So I'm going to get rid of this and then add this. Now I'm just kind of going to create this so it acts as a bit of a table / base. So you can use your pencil to help you sketch around the shape that you've created. Once you're happy with the pieces, you can then start to glue them one piece at a time. So take your first piece and give it a nice even coverage. Make sure you get to the edges and line that up with your pencil drawing and then secure everything in place, taking the other pieces and just patching them together. And in some ways this doesn't have to be an exact art either, because we're going to be collaging over this area as well. So when you're doing a base, just bear that in mind and don't worry too much about the edges, because like I say, we're going to kind of cover over the top. And you could keep going with this all the way around, but for now I'm just going to concentrate on this area and then start on my flower. Now we're just going to trim down the edges of the collage so it fits with the size of the paper. This can be done either now, or you can leave it right until the end and trim everything down at that point. So now I'm going to start thinking about the flower. I've got lots of little pieces of different materials. So as you can see with my still life, I'm using my hydrangea flower. It's got lots of different colours. So we've got lots of pinks and purples, and in the middle there's a sort of a yellowy green centre, and I really want to try and get those kind of blues and pinks and purples into the petals. I don't need it to look exactly like the hydrangea. I don't need each piece to be exactly the same shape or size. I just want to kind of get that general feeling. So what I quite like to do when I'm doing my collage is cut out some pieces to start with and have a little bit of a play around with how they look. I'm going to make some petals with slightly different shapes, just cutting out some pieces of my, these are my offcuts at the minute, and I'm going to sort of build up a selection, and before I do any sticking down. So that means that I can move things around, try things out. So this is quite nice because it's actually got figures in, but it's exactly the kind of colours that I think match our still life here. So I'm going to cut that into some petal shapes. And you can see already that the colour palette's building up. Once you're happy with how the body of the area that you've been working on is started to build up, and it's looking quite dense and there's a lot of different colours and textures starting to happen, now is a good time to start sticking things down. It doesn't mean that you have to be finished with that area, it just means that you can lock down that base layer and then you can add more on top of it. So I feel like I'm at a stage where I want to glue these things down. Now we've got our main body of the still life all filled in, all the little sections, so you can see I've kind of filled them in. And then it's down to doing exactly the same thing but with the other areas. So I'm going to start with, I think I'm going to start with the vase, and then I'm going to do the stalk and leaves. It depends on what your still life is, but if you break down the sections, just as I've done, where I've pulled together the colours and done that area, and then I can kind of think about the next bit. Now I'm going to start on the vase area. Like I said before, this shape here was just to kind of give us that guideline that we needed to know what shape we're going to go for. So I'm just going to start like before, just cutting some sections. Now because the petals of the flower were quite detailed, I thought it would be quite nice to have lots of little bits and just really emphasising that change of colour. But with the vase, or with something that's like slightly bigger, it's quite nice to have more of a blocky area. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this to create more of a block, and then I'm going to work into it. So I'm just kind of cutting around this shape. You can see that it's not actually quite big enough on this side, so what I'll do is I'll just patch it up and just add some more bits, something different, make it part of the design, or try and find another piece that's similar and patch it up together. It doesn't matter, there's no right or wrong, it all looks nice. You might also want to use your guidelines and pencil in some areas, so I want to kind of cut that down here, and actually looking at it I've realised that I've just done that a little bit too far in, so I'm going to take my rubber and rub that out, and then look at that shape again, make sure it's kind of more matching with the other side before I cut it. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to glue this down. So now I've got kind of a nice area that I can work from and add to. So I'll start looking at my bluey greeny colours that I cut out before from the collage. Thought this sofa was really nice. Now some of it's like guesswork, where you cut it down and you fix it and you just keep going until you're happy. But I'm going to start adding a little bit of detail into my collage. And then I can add some more, because I've got a few of these, which is really handy, and it can bring in a kind of pattern element of my vase. I'm not trying to replicate it and be exactly the same, I just want to give it that sort of sense of decoration. I've cut out the two leaves and I'm going to just rub out the pencil marks underneath, because my shapes are a tiny bit different and I'm happy with that, but I just don't want to have the pencil showing through, so this feels like a good point to rub that out. Now I'm just gluing on the part of the vase and making the final touches to finish off the collage, making sure everything's in place, and now it's ready to go. We're done. Our still life collage.